everything changed in a matter of seconds. I mean, literally, one single play on the turf, one devastating snap of the ball, and the entire future of a historic, storied franchise was violently fractured in real time. The carefully constructed blueprint, the one they spent years building, it just disintegrated. Welcome to NFL Nexus, your premier channel for deep dive, cinematic football analysis. If you appreciate this level of detailed, uncompromising explainer, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this explainer, leave a comment down below with your thoughts as we go, and please, support the channel by becoming a channel member. Your support is exactly what allows us to keep peeling back the complex layers of the most intense, high-stakes stories in the league. Today, we're unpacking a massive saga. We're talking immense financial gambles, the brutal physical reality of aging superstars, and a front office that was forced to completely rewrite their entire organizational playbook in the dark. This is the story of the Miami Dolphins' unprecedented $50 million pivot, the intricate salary cap mechanics that drove it, and the lingering, haunting shadow of the fastest man to ever wear their uniform. So, how quickly does a franchise actually move on? Think about your own favorite team for a moment. When a foundational piece goes down, when the absolute face of your franchise gets carted off the field, the mourning period for us fans, it lasts for weeks, right? Sometimes even months. We attach our hearts, our memories, and our identities to the superstars who electrify our Sundays. But behind the closed, soundproof doors of an NFL front office, man, loyalty is just an illusion. It gets instantly overshadowed by the ruthless, unforgiving math of the salary cap. In this league, the window for a championship is razor thin, and that salary cap, it operates as a rigid, unyielding master. You just don't have the luxury of waiting around or hoping for the best. You either adapt immediately, reallocating millions of dollars on the fly, or you get swallowed whole by the rest of the league. For the Miami Dolphins, that brutal reality hit them with the force of an absolute freight train early in the 2025 season. They were forced to stare down a devastating situation, analyze the catastrophic financial implications, and make a split-second decision. A decision that was either going to build a rugged new dynasty or set their organization back a full decade.
Okay, let's dive into this, because to truly understand where the Dolphins are headed, you've got to feel the weight of what they left behind. Early 2025, MetLife Stadium. It's a high-stakes divisional game against the New York Jets. Tyreek Hill, the absolute focal point of the Dolphins' offensive identity, the guy who literally commands double teams on every single snap, goes down. And it wasn't just a tweak or a minor sprain. No, it was a severe, catastrophic knee dislocation. From a physiological standpoint, a full knee dislocation means multiple structural ligaments, we're talking the ACL, PCL, MCL, they're completely compromised, bringing massive risks of vascular and nerve damage. Honestly, it was one of the most gruesome injuries of the entire season. The stadium just went dead silent. As the cart rolled out onto the field to take him away, everyone watching knew, deep down, they were witnessing the end of an era. The aftermath was swift and mathematically merciless. The Dolphins, suffocating under future salary cap constraints and massive guaranteed money, made the cold, calculated decision to release Hill this past offseason. By cutting him, they triggered this complex cascade of dead cap acceleration. It forcibly cleared their books for future years, sure, but it left a massive, unfillable void in their current identity. And yet, here we are in the summer of 2026. And Hill? He absolutely refuses to disappear quietly into the night. He's out there posting intensely grueling rehab workouts, all while the franchise that cut him attempts to forge a brand new path. Enter General Manager John Eric Sullivan. Just imagine the sheer gravity of the pressure sitting on his shoulders in that front office. The defining weapon of his offense is completely gone. His cap space is a tangled, messy web of prorated signing bonuses and dead money, and an entire desperate fan base is screaming for immediate dancers. Sullivan couldn't just sit back and try to find some cheap imitation of Tyreek Hill in the draft. The mathematical reality of replacing that kind of production with a single rookie is, well, it's statistically impossible. He had to fundamentally reshape the entire architectural philosophy of the Miami Dolphins. And this is where the true cinematic tension of team building actually happens. It's not under the bright stadium lights, it's in the war room. It's staring at complex spreadsheets, projecting cap inflation way out to 2028, aggressively negotiating with powerful agents, and basically betting your entire professional career on a controversial new vision. Sullivan recognized that trying to replace a generational anomaly with just one guy was a total fool's errand, so he pivoted hard. He decided to take the massive, newly created financial relief born from Tyreek's departure and spread it horizontally. He spread it across the foundation of the team, completely altering the DNA of how Miami plans to win football games moving forward.
That horizontal pivot materialized into what we are now calling the 2026 extension spree. Instead of chasing flashy, premium outside positions, Miami looked directly inward. They extended running back Devon Chain, locking in that elite home run speed and advanced analytical efficiency right there in the backfield. Then they locked down center Aaron Brewer, the absolute anchor of the offensive line, ensuring the interior trenches were utterly secure. And on top of that, they secured linebacker Jordan Brooks, bringing sideline-to-sideline speed to totally control the absolute middle of the defense. Now, if you know anything about traditional NFL team-building dogma, you know that running backs, centers, and inside linebackers are strictly labeled as non-premium positions. Modern analytics basically scream at you to spend your money almost exclusively on quarterbacks, left tackles, and wide receivers. Historically speaking, paying top-of-the-market value for an off-ball linebacker and a center in the exact same offseason is about as rare as a snowstorm in Miami. But Sullivan deliberately defied that conventional wisdom. He intentionally chose to pay top-of-the-market rates for these three specific, highly physical players. Why? Well, because when you lose your singular gravitational force on the outside, you must become incredibly strong, dense, and physically punishing up the middle. You literally have to transform into a team that violently dictates the physical terms of the game. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale of the financial commitment here. Just look at these annual average values. We aren't talking about bargain bin stopgap deals meant to just temporarily patch a hole. No, we're talking about fundamentally resetting the market for their respective roles across the entire league. Devon Achane is locked in at a staggering $16 million a year. That is a massive figure for a modern running back. Jordan Brooks commands $17.1 million annually to patrol the middle of the field. And Aaron Brewer, he tops them both at an eye-watering $17.5 million just to snap the football and anchor the line. To put that into perspective, Achane and Brewer's new money averages rank third highest at their respective positions across the entire NFL. Brooks ranks fifth. This is highly aggressive, calculated financial warfare by the Dolphins front office. They're looking at the rest of the league, acknowledging the runaway, skyrocketing inflation of those so-called premium positions, and deciding to buy three elite foundational cornerstones for the exact same price as one isolated megastar. They are heavily betting that the combined compounding impact of three top 5 players at these specialized positions is going to ultimately yield a much higher, much more stable return on investment than putting all their fragile chips on a single individual. $50.6 million. Let that number just hang in the air for a second. Let the massive, staggering scale of this new core investment fully sink into your mind. That is the combined annual cost of retaining Achane, Brooks, and Brewer. Every single season, more than $50 million of the Miami Dolphins' highly restricted salary cap is strictly dedicated to this specific trio. In a league permanently defined by a hard salary cap, every single dollar is a weapon, and every single contract carries a massive opportunity cost. You literally cannot spend this money twice. By committing this astronomical sum to these three men, the Dolphins are loudly declaring their new, rugged identity to the world. They're basically telling their fiercest rivals that they intend to run the ball with lethal efficiency, protect the interior of the pocket flawlessly, and violently hunt down opposing ball carriers on defense. It's a $50 million, franchise-altering gamble that fundamentally changes exactly who the Miami Dolphins are, right down to their absolute core. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact philosophical divide currently tearing through NFL front offices. Notice the visual contrast here. Miami's strategy spreads $50.6 million across three elite foundational players to fortify the core of their roster. Compare that to the alternative, which is perfectly represented by the Houston Texans. They just handed a 3-year, $150 million extension to one premium edge rusher, Will Anderson. That is $50 million a year for one single human being. It's kind of funny, actually. It's this quirky reality of the NFL where teams will gleefully back up the Brinks truck for a guy whose only job is to chase the quarterback for 4 seconds of play, but they completely clench their wallets when it comes to the unglamorous guys protecting the middle. I mean, is Will Anderson a better, more dominant athlete than Jordan Brooks as a linebacker? Absolutely. Does an elite edge rusher tilt the field more dramatically in a vacuum? For sure, yes. But the Dolphins' deeper value proposition is fascinating. They are gambling that having 3 absolute, definitive answers to 3 massive physical questions on their roster creates a significantly higher floor. They get a much wider margin for error than they would by placing all $50 million and basically the entire fate of the franchise onto the shoulders and the vulnerable knees of one single player. It is a brilliant, high-stakes game of long-term resource management. But, no matter how perfectly logical the math seems on those front office spreadsheets, and no matter how physically dominant Achane, Brewer, and Brooks might prove to be, there is a ghost haunting this entire transition. The phantom presence of Tyreek Hill lingers heavily over every single decision this franchise makes. You just cannot simply erase a player who fundamentally warped the geometry of the football field. Every single time the Dolphins' offense steps onto the grass in 2026, the glaring absence of Hill's world-breaking, terrifying speed is going to be felt. Opposing safeties can suddenly, confidently inch closer to the line of scrimmage. And the craziest part? The very cap space that allowed Miami to aggressively sign their new trio was born directly from the dark tragedy of Hill's injury and his subsequent unceremonious release. He is out there right now, a free agent wandering in the wilderness, an aging superstar with a severely damaged knee, but armed with a mind and a competitive spirit that absolutely refuses to accept that his time in the blinding spotlight has come to an end. Tyreek Hill already doing intense workouts after gruesome injury. That is the actual headline from the Sun Sentinel that sent massive shockwaves through league front offices just this week. Look, the traditional medical timeline for a full multi-ligament knee dislocation is incredibly, undeniably grim. It is an injury that completely destroys the very foundational ligaments required for sudden, explosive changes of direction, which is literally the exact physical trait that made Tyreek Hill a future Hall of Famer. It involves grueling, painful reconstruction and months of simply trying to figure out how to walk normally again. Conventional medical wisdom heavily dictates that he should miss most, if not all, of the 2026 season. So, naturally, teams are financially terrified to touch him. But Hill? He's relentlessly defiant. The raw footage he released shows him grinding, sweating, and aggressively pushing a joint that was virtually destroyed just months ago. He's fighting this seemingly impossible uphill battle against time, against anatomy, and against a cold, calculating NFL machine that has already mathematically replaced him. But when you look at the sheer intensity of those workouts, you realize something absolutely crucial. Tyreek Hill is fighting to prove that he is way more than just a discarded line item on a salary cap spreadsheet. He is fighting for his ultimate legacy. Because, honestly, we must never, ever forget exactly who we are talking about in this equation. Just look back to the 2023 season. 1,799 receiving yards, 13 touchdowns. He led the entire National Football League in both categories. He wasn't just good. He was an unstoppable, singular force of nature, a cinematic blur that left elite cornerbacks gasping for air and had defensive coordinators tossing and turning all night. But the athletic decline in this league is sharp, and it is unspeakably cruel. By 2024, despite playing 17 full games, his production dipped. He fell short of 1,000 yards as defenses adapted and age finally started to creep in. And in 2026, right before that devastating, career-altering injury against the Jets, he had managed only 265 yards in 4 incredibly frustrating games. Actually, the quiet tragedy of the aging athlete is that the mind still sees the ankles perfectly, the heart still craves the violent contact, but the body, it slowly begins to betray the blueprint. The NFL forgets greatness with frightening, ruthless speed, but the game tape doesn't lie. Tyreek Hill at his peak was a terrifying proposition, and if he can medically reclaim even a fraction of that elite explosion, some daring team is going to acquire a highly dangerous, intensely motivated weapon. Which brings us to the ultimate, unresolved tension of this entire sprawling saga. The Miami Dolphins have confidently placed a massive $50.6 million bet that a balanced, physically punishing foundation is the true path to a Lombardi trophy. They have effectively, decisively closed the book on their era of high-flying singular superstardom. Meanwhile, Tyreek Hill is out there right now, rehabbing violently in the shadows, absolutely desperate to prove that the franchise that mathematically cut him made a fatal, historic miscalculation. So what does this all mean? Will Miami's aggressive spread the wealth philosophy hold up against the elite, high-scoring quarterbacks of the AFC? Will Tyreek Hill ever step foot on an NFL field again, perhaps even wearing the colors of a direct, bitter rival looking for ultimate revenge? We don't have the final answers yet. But one thing is absolute, cold, and undeniably clear about professional football: the machine never stops. What do you guys think about Miami's $50 million gamble, and where does Tyreek Hill go from here? Let me know down in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to NFL Nexus, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.